Hello, boxing fans around the world. Thanks for joining me once again here on Talk and Fight for another episode of Boxing News Today, courtesy of our friends across the pond at boxing247.com. And boy, do we have a doozy today. Breaking news out of England with respect to the upcoming Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn fight. Two welterweights, Conor Benn being undefeated, going up against a much more experienced Chris Eubank Jr. And following in the footsteps, if you will, of their fathers back in the day. And this, of course, supersedes a couple of other headlines. Andy Ruiz wants all the top names in the heavyweight division. Go figure. Jason Maloney pushing for a WBC mandatory position. But I'm telling you, despite all these fantastic headlines, this one is what is making the headlines. And whether or not this fight will go on, I'm talking about Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. The British Boxing Board of Control says Saturday night's fight between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. is prohibited and not in the interests of boxing. Now, keeping that in mind, Matchroom have issued a statement because, quite frankly, they do have the option, and precedent has been set in the past, I believe over 10 years ago, Hay versus Chisora, when a very similar situation happened, and the promoters just simply went to the Luxembourg Board of Boxing, who provided the licenses and allowed the fight, therefore, to continue. This might happen in this situation. Let's see what our friends over at Boxing 247 have to say with respect to the statement made by Matchroom. They said,
yeah, just got to do a
go ahead. Go ahead.
Voice message.
Yeah, just have to do a voice message because I'm being bombarded from different directions about this. Right, more info. Apparently, the test, which is a failed test, took place in August, and apparently they tried to cover up. They apparently tried to cover up the negative result, obviously, for the testosterone-enhancing drug. Obviously, they stopped at that point because they got caught out, and since then have passed a UCAD test. But they were hopefully trying to get away with this woman's fertility drug. Testosterone booster. But it was from August. They got sprung, tried to cover it up. It's come out now. Yeah.
There you have it, boxing fans. From our friends over at boxing247.com, giving us up-to-date news with respect to whether or not this fight will go on. Just so you know, this is exactly what Matchroom had to say. We have been made aware that a random anti-doping test for Conor Benn, by the way, who they represent, conducted at the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association, that's the VADA, returned an adverse analytical finding for trace amounts of a fertility drug. The B sample has yet to be tested, meaning that no rule violation has been confirmed. Indeed, Mr. Benn has not been charged with any rule violation. He is not suspended, and he remains free to fight. Mr. Benn has since passed a doping control test conducted by the UK Anti-Doping Agency, the Anti-Doping Authority, to which the BB of BC has delegated its doping control testing for the bout. Mr. Benn has passed all doping control tests conducted by UCAD. Both fighters have taken medical and legal advice, are aware of all relevant information, and wish to proceed with the bout this Saturday. Now that's all well and good because it follows on the heels, to be blunt, about news emanating out of England with respect to Chris Eubank saying something to the effect, he's only training at 60%. Plus, he's indulging in junk food. So he, whether you thought he was going to win or not is relevant. If he lost, he therefore could say, oh, I lost because I didn't train hard enough, or I'm eating junk food. But now if he loses to Conor Benn, you have the option, quite frankly, of a no decision, no contest, simply because of now these doping tests results, which, are controversial unto themselves because the BBB of C actually control the VADA, so it's somewhat irrelevant because it is voluntary. And whether they have any standing with respect to the outcome of the fight is another question altogether. Some of the people who thought going into the fight that Conor Benn might remain, continue his undefeated winning streak here. Let's give you a quick example of former WBO title holder Johnny Nelson. Shared his thoughts on the upcoming fight. Okay. The interviewer said to Johnny Nelson, Roy Jones Jr. has come out and said that Eubank will beat Conor Benn with no problems. What are your predictions on this fight? Will it be as easy as a lot of people are making out? Johnny Nelson replied, no, it won't be because of weight. It all depends on the weight, and that will determine how this fight is going to be. If Eubank is apparently going to weigh 11 stone 5 on Saturday morning, he's going to weigh no more than 11 stone 10 or pay the fine. And so if it was a super middleweight, I would say Eubank every day of the week. He is too big for Conor. But at this weight, with the restriction on, this is a closer fight than people think. Conor is a good emergent talent, getting better with each fight. Even though Eubank has the experience, he's been there and is naturally the bigger man. His weight is going to be a big telling factor in this fight. And the interviewer says, how do you feel like it means more to Benn than Eubank? To which he replied, oh yeah, without a doubt. Benn wears his heart on his sleeve. He's like his dad. He is his father's son. It's not about money for him. This is for real. Eubank needs to be careful that he doesn't underestimate the hunger, desire, and want from Conor Benn. So the interviewer asks, do you think that the pressure of their father's fights in the past is going to play a major role in this fight? Is that going to give either fight the edge? No, not at all, he replies. As you get in the ring, you're an individual. Of course, it's the cherry on the cake. And I think a Eubank will always be able to undermine a Benn because Benns wear their heart on their sleeves and Eubanks can come across as smug and know-it-all. So I think a Eubank can always get the psychological edge over a Benn. But when it comes to this fight, you've got two guys that want to fight and that can fight. So there you go. A bit of interest. Well, there's been interesting opinions on who will win going into this fight, but now the entire fight is up in the air because the BBBOC, the British Boxing Board of Control, has determined, as I said up front at the start of this, they have determined the fight is prohibited and not in the interest of boxing. Therefore, some people are saying it's canceled. But believe me, Eddie Hearn and DAZN want this fight to happen. And some might add that Eddie Hearn sees this as a ploy, quite frankly, knowing he can go to Luxembourg and get Luxembourg to issue those licenses and allow the fight to continue, as a ploy to increase pay-per-view sales. So these are some of the arguments that we have to work with today. And of course, if Conor Benn wins and is declared, let's say, no contest, it opens up the opportunity for a rematch to occur and even more money to be made by Matchroom and the various boxers and people in the sport. But for me, from my point of view, this is a black eye for boxing. And, I don't know why all of a sudden results that were apparent back in August due to a test that was taken back in August come to light mere days before the actual fight. They've done everything they can to promote it, to sell the most amount of pay-per-view tickets as possible. And now all of a sudden there's controversy and it's making headlines around the world, including headlines here on Talk and Fight. And that, my friends, is all the news fit to print. I appreciate it. Remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And we'll see you later on at 4 p.m. for Knuckle Up with Mike Orr and Cedric Benn. Thank you.